welcome back to another episode of Things We Read This Week. It's episode 14, and we're getting into the holiday spirit. I got my Christmas sweater on. Hunter's got his Christmas
Tracksuit.
two-piece track suit. Yeah.
Hell yeah, man.
Um,
Hey, you
we're,
know what? I feel like, you know, since like COVID happened, like there was just like a sharp rise in like what I'll call athleisure wear. And instead of sitting here in my office in like, jeans or something, I'm like, dude, I'm just gonna go for peak comfort. Like you don't know peak comfort until you've like spent an entire day in a tracksuit. It's
peak
quite
comfort indeed.
comfortable.
Yeah. Well, now's the time for pajama pants and, all sorts of comfort in the holiday season as we wind down
Absolutely.
2024 with the prediction episode. We're gonna be making some predictions as discussed last week.
Buddy, we're gonna
Um,
be gambling. We're gonna be
we're
making some bets. As soon as I find my crypto wallet, it's on, man.
that's somewhere. Yeah. Okay, so let's dive in. So we've got six poly market markets, I guess, that we're gonna go through. We've picked uh, we've picked ones related to business and science in here. And for those who don't know about Polymarket, basically is a place for you to take the put your money where your mouth is on the predictions. We're going to start with a quick one, which which I think we've talked about a number of times. And this one resolves on December 31st. So it's we're going to quickly see how accurate we're going to be on this one. But
Oh
Hunter,
yeah.
give me your take. Top AI model on December 31st. Specifically, the market's going to resolve to yes if currently the Gemini model, which is leading the way with a 68%, has the highest arena score on the chatbot arena for the LM6 arena. Others in the running, ChatGPT, Claude from Anthropic, Grok from XAI, and other. What do you think here? Is Gemini going to hold its lead here?
I think so. Yeah. I'm gonna go with Gemini closing out the year as top of the leaderboard. I don't see OpenAI releasing some, you know, definitely not releasing, a Chat GPT 5, but I don't see them releasing some other model between now and December 31st that leapfrogs Gemini. I think that, you know, Google's enjoying a little bit of a renaissance right now with their models that they're producing. I don't know that it's going to last for very long, right? Because as we've seen in this space, something like Gemini comes out that is the top of the leaderboard, and then, Anthropic or OpenAI release another model that leapfrogs it, and then Meta does $1 trillion training run and releases Llama 4, or something, right? That goes to the top of the leaderboard, and they're all just leapfrogging each other, right? So I don't know that it's going to last very long, but I do think that Gemini is going to close out the year as the top model.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there are rumors still swirling about a GPT-5 style model or a Claude 3.5 Opus model or something that's bigger coming from the other labs, but it's I think the restriction on December 31st is just a little too close. We're 2 weeks away. I would agree with you. Gemini is going to close it out. The comment about the renaissance for Google is really interesting just because um, it's both the chatbot and their release with VO, the video generation model, being
Hmm.
compared to OpenAI's Sora. Um, yeah, and we've already covered GraphCast or GenCast for weather prediction. Obviously, everything going on with DeepMind and uh, protein folding, like the amount that the sentiment for Google in the market has changed is crazy. We
Hmm.
started the year making comments about how um, Google's dead, Perplexity is taking over. How did they get disrupted by OpenAI so significantly? And now we're ending the year, and it seems like they've got a clear lead in multiple different domains of meaningful AI progress.
Hell of a
like both.
comeback, man.
Yeah, quick one too.
Yeah.
Quick one.
Yeah. Hell of a
And
comeback.
it seems durable. Like there's no reason why you think OpenAI or Microsoft would have an advantage over Google in terms of experience building out data centers, fundamental research. The transformer model came from Google. Um, Data. I mean, Google has more user data than anybody else on the planet.
Hmm.
Um, there's speculation about how much YouTube video data was used for the video generation model, for example. How can people compete with that? It's it's pretty crazy.
Well, one could argue that Google could also double dip here and be like, hey, if you want to equal our performance, we'll sell you access to this data for a hefty premium, of course. And
Yeah,
so, we've talked about that for a while, the whole data economy thing. I mean, Google could just turn around and be like, oh, hey, OpenAI, like you want to make ChatGPT 5 really good, like with all this data, like pay us $20 million for access to it or whatever it is, right? So,
yeah, exactly. And maybe it's worth explaining a little bit about what the arena is because I think there's ways in which these benchmarks get gamed.
mhm.
Um, and a lot of labs will basically train on test, like which completely changes the benchmark. So I just brought up the LMSys arena here. It's so a few things that are interesting. Models that so just to explain the concept, LMSys arena operates like a chess ELO ranking or a tennis ladder at the club or something like that, where models compete head to head, anonymously providing a response to a user, punches in something, and they get a response from two models and they pick left better, right better, both good or both bad. And if models win those head to head comparisons, they rise up the leaderboard, and models that lose fall down by a factor of how far ahead or behind they were on the model they're competing against. So the fact that, Gemini, the latest release, as well as the 2.0 Flash thinking model, um, are both ahead of the 4.0 latest from Google, but also ahead of O1 Preview and O1 Mini, the models that are powering the ChatGPT Premium, which I
Mhm.
believe is now $200 a month to get
200
access to the
bucks a
full
month. Yeah.
O1. Yeah, it's and the fact that this has been released basically for free in Google's AI Studio. I mean,
Mhm.
it's really really striking. Um, but the I mean the the amount of specialization seems clear. Like from my experience and from stuff that I hear from other people, uh, Claude 3.5 is the best coding model out there, and it's down here tied for eighth um, in the general LMSys ranking.
Mhm.
So we're seeing a divergence between quality on the chatbot arena, like how good it is at answering questions or performing tasks that fit right into a chat interface, which is very different than what people may be using to build agents or write code or something like that.
Right.
Okay, so next one that's kind of tied to this on Polymarket, there's a there's another one that resolves in 2024. OpenAI announcing it has achieved AGI in 2024. Still a 5% chance.
Nope.
In January, when this market was released, people had this at a 25% chance. And so it's kind of gone down consistently with maybe little spikes as people are betting on press releases that we discussed here. I think the formal announcement has not been made. And would you agree you don't expect this to be made in 2024? Or do you think
I
they're going to come
don't.
out with a Christmas surprise?
No, I think what's more likely going to happen is, Sam's been preparing everyone for moving the goalposts and claiming AGI. I think what's more likely going to happen is sometime next year, ChatGPT 5 gets released, they claim AGI, and then we start to see a shift. And I don't know if you want me to talk about that shift now or later, but basically, one of my predictions for 2025 is we start to move away from multimodal models. and we start to have like basically ChatGPT 5 becomes peak of multimodal models, and then we start to basically break out vision, break out video, break out audio, break out, all of these different modes into their own separate models, right? So like you have a Chat GPT 5 video, you have a Chat GPT 5 audio, Chat GPT 5 chat or text, a Chat GPT 5 image, stuff like that, right? Like you basically start to break the models out and make them really, really good at one specific task, as opposed to trying to be good at 10 tasks.
Yeah. Yeah, which definitely goes against the um, ethos of AGI as a concept, I would
Right.
say. Like if you're pursuing AGI, the whole concept seems to be that we're trying to build a single artificial intelligence that is um, meeting or exceeding the best humans in the world at all relevant, let's say, cognitive tasks, maybe not manual stuff in the
Right.
real world, but um, conceptually that includes all sorts of different modalities. And so, yeah, that's an interesting one. GPT-5 in 2025, claims of AGI. Do you think it helps them get out of the deal with Microsoft and that's fundamentally what they're after? Or do you think it's purely like there's technologists at OpenAI who are so focused on the impact of AI on their daily life that they truly believe, kind of as we discussed last week, how how they do their job, like they're going to be replaced by AI and they can't do anything better than AI.
I think it's probably both.
Yeah.
I think it's probably, on the business side for sure, right? Like here's another prediction, right? Like OpenAI becomes a for-profit company, gets out from under Satya's thumb. Um, I don't know. I don't know if it happens before April 2025, though. I mean,
Yeah. So we're going to,
that seems way too close to make that big of a transition or that big of a shift. So I would maybe put that, if it was me, I'd say OpenAI becomes for profit before December 2025, right? Like, let's give it a full year for all the legal stuff to get worked out, because you know how long that takes, right? I mean, once you get through the regulatory machine, get all the not necessary sign offs and approvals and blah, 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 right? Like, that could take 6, 8 months. Even if they announce it in January, right? I mean, we likely would not see them become a for profit entity before August at the earliest.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, the timelines are what's so important about these markets here and why they have these levels of uncertainty. So
Yeah.
you, yeah. And so just to recap, we got three markets that Hunter's putting his crypto wallet on. He's taken the yes on Gemini. He's taken OpenAI not announcing AGI in 2024, and he's taken OpenAI not becoming a for-profit before April 2025. I agree with the first two. I'm going to go against you on this one. I think it's possible. I would take the yes, um, the 27% chance, according to the market right here, that they become a for-profit before April 2025. I don't think there's regulatory hurdles to making that happen for a private company the way that you're describing. I think that um, they can just do it, and then there's going to be repercussions later that will drag on for years and years.
Ask for forgiveness, not permission.
Exactly. Yeah. From the Department of Justice. Yeah. Yeah. And I think they're kind of out of options. So I
All right.
don't believe there's three factors. I think there's uh, people building highly valuable business-driven agents with Claude, and AWS announced the 6.5 billion investment in them,
Mm-hmm.
which is just a huge amount of Trainium chips. So they're going for another big run.
Yeah.
XAI is building out a massive cluster right now. Everybody's seen that. They're up right there on the leaderboard with Grok. and then you've got Google at the top of the leaderboard. And so I don't think OpenAI can really continue as a nonprofit and go for that next training run without finding a way to raise more money, basically.
Yeah.
And I don't think they can raise money in the current capped profit partnership structure they have with Microsoft.
Hmm.
Microsoft effectively owns the intellectual property. And if there, it's interesting because if there's any, or of those top four, let's say, maybe you can include Llama and Meta in there to round out a top five. If you were to say who is most driven to be profitable, I would actually say it's OpenAI and Microsoft
Yeah.
of the five of them, which is strange because they're the only nonprofit in the list,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So they have the biggest profit motive because Microsoft is the biggest. It's a sole investor that's not, a venture investment. It's truly like a thing that needs to be returning invested capital.
Hmm.
Um, and that's different than, you know, a collection of investors, including Amazon investing in Anthropic. Everybody's just taking a shot at the upside. Um, Google has just more money than Microsoft to invest, and they do more fundamental research. Meta's already making everything open source. It's not clear that they have the for-profit motive directly. They're trying to do the scorched earth thing. And then I don't know, Grok is like seems like a passion project.
So here's a question. You just made me think of this. Is $6 billion just the new price tag now? Because, we've seen the public article that Elon is putting 6 billion into XAI, and we've seen the article that Amazon is putting 6 billion into Anthropic. It's like, is it just 6 billion now? Like that's the cost for another training run?
Yeah, I mean, somewhere down there, the denominator of the equation is like, 64 ports in a XDR switch or something like that. Got to divide by on a three-layer fat tree. Just
Yeah.
decide it rounds out to 6 billion, not eight, not four, not
Yeah.
12.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Like, if you look at what they're investing that money in, it is different. Like, it's Trainium chips in
Right.
AWS and it's um, NVIDIA chips for Grok
Yep.
and for Llama. But yeah, I mean, there's some we've discussed this. The limitation is power in terms of how
Hmm.
big these things can get. And
Sure.
so I think there's at some point you're like the incremental billion on chips cannot be served by the incremental 100 million on power that would be required or something. Um, but maybe it's a restriction on the network, or maybe it's a restriction on the amount of money. Like maybe it's even simpler where X announces it's six, and so Anthropic announces it's six,
Yeah.
and it's just a Russia versus, or they announce it's 6.5 actually, right? Am I remembering that correctly?
I think so.
Um, it's like a Rush. You ever seen those illustrations of Russia versus the U.S. setting off nukes during the Cold War in the middle of the ocean or underground? It's like they always had to be like zero point 0.1 megaton more than the last one
Hmm.
from the other guys. So
Yeah.
yeah, maybe it's just an arms race and there's no technology limitation. I don't know. Can't say too much about this stuff. Um, okay, next market. How about that?
Yeah.
The first three have all been about OpenAI and they're the talk of the town. But let's move over to Google where we kind of talked. I guess they were part of the first one with the top model. So big announcement that I don't think we covered in detail was Google being forced to sell Chrome. Obviously, this has been announced by um, I believe the DOJ.
Yes.
Uh, but there's the market will resolve to yes if um, Alphabet or Google formally announces that it's selling or divesting Chrome partially or entirely by May 31st of next year, sitting at a 14% chance. So this is, are you in agreement? This is with the market that this is going to be a no because the, let's say the legal process is just going to drag on and they're going to fight it for however many number of years?
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough one, right, for me. Because there's a lot more factors that go into this, in my opinion. So number one, right, there's obviously the appeals process, which when you have a tech company with effectively unlimited money, right, you can afford to drag that appeals process out for a decade, even if you wanted to. Um, I also think that the decision was made, you know, by the DOJ. There's the appeals process. There's also the fact that, in the United States, we have presidential change happening next year. And, that change is someone who's, notoriously extremely pro business. And so I think that, if Sundar went and kissed the ring already, that could potentially even get reversed or charges dropped. You know what I mean? So like this one's pretty difficult because I feel like there's way too many external factors. Um, as of right now, based on where my head's at, I think that Google ends up not having to sell Chrome.
Yeah. I so let's go outside of the market. You think it's just not going to be forced to sell it at any point or put
Not
it on
within,
2030 or something like that.
yeah, I mean, not within the next 4 years. How about that?
Interesting. And you don't think they'll proactively do something just because this is the only way I imagine this happening by May is if Google kind of has a prophylactic response where they're like, let's just
Hmm.
do this to keep them off our back for the bigger fish, which is like splitting off YouTube or splitting off
Yeah.
the ads business or
Yep.
something like that.
That's a good point, actually. That's a good counterpoint. Like they could just let Chrome go in exchange for getting the DOJ to not tell them that they have to get rid of YouTube or get rid of ads or get rid of something else, right?
Yeah, this and so I think the market's accurately pricing in that chance at somewhere between 10 and 15% here that um, the next administration treats this as a negotiation tactic
Yeah.
with somebody. It's already been announced. I need something. Um, there's a lot of reasons why you might want to go after one of the largest or the largest companies in the world and get a bit of capitulation on something. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see what people's priorities are. It's it's really interesting how much this influences technology. Like my personal experience of using Chrome, where I log in with a Gmail account, authenticate, and then I have, you know, history and bookmarks and stuff travel to my phone, where I can also have a Chrome browser there. I mean, it's weird because I don't even know if the spin includes the Chromium open source project,
Hmm.
which is just a bunch of Google employees kind of governing it, but is totally taking contributions from people all around the world.
Yeah, Microsoft has contributed to it.
Yeah.
There have been other people that have taken it, and you've got Brave, you've got a bunch of other alternative browsers that have basically taken the Chromium engine, put their own spin on it, and released it as a different product.
Yeah. So I don't know if this results in a uh if a standalone Chromium project with more contributions from others or from a standalone company called Chrome that's now a for-profit
Hmm.
is going to result in better outcomes for users. I can't even say really consumers because this is, as everybody says, if you're using something for free, you're not the customer, you're the product.
Right.
And Chrome's an example of something where I am the product being sold to advertisers as I use the tool. Um,
Well,
even
and this
though,
even this one of the things that I was thinking about when this was first announced is it is wild to me to see basically how much Google owns the portal to the internet. You have Chromium, which is the basis of Edge, Brave, bunch of other browsers.
yeah,
But then they also provide funding to Mozilla for Firefox to exist.
yeah,
So it's like, what does it do to non-Chromium based browsers like Firefox? If the money tree gets, cut down basically with this decision, what happens there, right? And Mozilla's leadership has made some statements about like, hey, everything will be fine, even if it does happen, like we're not worried about it, blah blah blah. But like the reality of the situation is like there was a period of time where everyone went on Firefox, then Chrome came out, everyone migrated to Chrome, um, and Firefox had a very limited browser market share. And I suspect that the money that they were receiving from Google basically kept them afloat. And then when Google decided that they were going to kill Manifest v2, which breaks everybody's ad blockers, then everyone's like, oh, you got to go move back over to Firefox. And, you should also stop using Google as your search engine and you should use, DuckDuckGo or something else, right? Like, there was a lot of talk about doing that. And so I think that Firefox has grown in market share, probably not as much as people think, given all the chatter, because the experience that you just described of basically having my Gmail account, which I use every day and I've had forever, also be the key to getting my browser history and bookmarks and everything on my phone, on my iPad, basically having all that follow me is a pretty unique experience that so I switched over to Firefox, right? The Firefox desktop and Firefox mobile are two different code bases,
yeah,
meaning I don't get that same experience, right? I have a Mozilla account. The only thing it synchronizes is bookmarks. Everything else does not follow me. And so now I'm stuck with this decision of like, do I go back to Chrome and do something like deploy a, Pi-hole, which is a DNS black hole service on my home network and just block ads that way, right? Not worry about needing an ad blocker in a browser. Or do I, continue down the path of Firefox and hope it gets better? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. It's just stuff I'm thinking about right now.
yeah. Well, and it's really late stage. Like this is
Yeah.
a market with browsers that are really close to being feature complete across
Hmm.
all of these things. And so I think the way that this would really impact people is, I mean, it's really weird to focus on a browser when disruption to the interface is happening at the thanks to AI.
Hmm.
The biggest thing that's changed my browsing habits recently has not been a feature related to history or ad blockers or
Yeah.
anything like that. It's the fact that I now have the Perplexity app on my phone and I
Hmm.
can ask a question quickly and get a response where the search is happening in the background programmatically by, Perplexity API calls and not by me typing something in and then scrolling through an ad and clicking onto a blue link and then scrolling through an ad. The
Right.
which doesn't seem to impact Chrome, but it seems to impact the um, experience that users have with how many ads they see.
Yeah.
And that's going to change the profitability of stuff like, we talked about Stack Overflow,
Hmm.
for example. If they just have a drop in traffic of 30% because people can ask ChatGPT or get a response from Perplexity or something like that, it's a big change.
Yeah.
So Google making investments, Google the company in AI, spinning off Chrome, for example, and then owning the next interface with the internet via a Gemini model or some app that they build, that has search built in that kind of takes out Perplexity. They're still going to reign supreme, and it's just going to be the few thousand engineers who get spun off that kind of have to keep themselves afloat, right?
Yeah.
And it seems pretty out of date to think that, a browser company is like a huge growth opportunity. It's an entrenched thing, probably a business that can make money stand alone, but I wouldn't be like, hey, what should we be funding for the future right now? The next browser. We only have six. We need something much better that makes money. Because
Yeah. I
people
mean,
really want to pay $10 for a premium browser. It's like, no, they don't. It's good enough for free.
well, there certainly is one company that thinks they're called the Browser Company, and last year they released their first product called Arc. They seem to, and they got a bunch of funding. I mean, they seem to think that they can reinvent the browser experience. Um, but then again, that's one person's take on it, right? That's one company. Like to your point, there's not 300 companies all trying to reinvent the what everyone's idea of a web browser should be, like there is in like the AI space.
Yeah, we're I don't know about to-do list apps and new browsers. We'll see. Um, okay, but talking about, you know, markets that are feature complete, there's a lot of rumors about more legacy market, Honda and Nissan. Sent you an article on this and you had an interesting response. So give me your take on the uh, announcement. Do you think Honda and Nissan will merge before February, so January 31st, with a formal announcement based on
I
these rumors?
I think they'll probably announce, right? Um, and here's why. There was an article I read a couple weeks ago that Nissan has basically until September next year, and they are out of cash.
Yeah.
So they're financially insolvent. And Honda has been taking quite the beating just because when everyone else was announcing EVs, they were pushing hydrogen fuel cells. And people basically, I think, took a look at it and said, "You want me to put a nuclear bomb in my car? Pass." And so it didn't go over super well. So I think both companies kind of missed the EV boom. Plus, they are also facing increasing competition from what's that Chinese EV company that like is basically outperforming Tesla in certain
BYD.
markets? Yeah, BYD. Yeah. So like they've also got BYD coming up, right? And so they got to do something. And I
Yeah.
think that that merger will probably get announced before February. So I'm going to go with yes on that. And the other reason why is like this is very similar to how Stellantis was born, right? They basically took globally, you know, Chrysler, Fiat, Dodge, Jeep, Alfa Romeo, Opel, Maserati, and just like stuck them all under one multinational conglomerate because they were all basically sucking wind, right? I mean, like they kind of took the approach of like, well, the tide lifts all boats, right? So like let's just put everything under one brand and there arguably is probably some synergies they see between the companies over like engineering and stuff like that and being able to share, learnings from within the brands. So like I think that's my other justification for why I think that's going to happen, that Honda and Toyota merge, because they'll probably emerge stronger after they get out of this. with a more unified vision and a more market share.
Yeah, Honda and Nissan. I think the uncertainty here is about February. So I'm gonna agree with like all of your reasoning and everything you said, and then just be a contrarian and go against you by saying, uh, yeah, these guys are a little bit slow. They'll negotiate for a couple months and it'll happen in February or in March or in April.
Okay.
But I agree
It
with
would
all of your
it
reasoning. Hmm?
it would actually be really hilarious if like they announced it on February 1st and I'm like,
Well, this
damn
is
it.
the, yeah, I mean, so maybe just the thing about the markets, like there's some stuff that people post online and they're clearly aware of some of these markets that are related to things they control or they report.
Hmm.
And this is like the ultimate unregulated. It's a crypto betting market, right?
I love
So
it.
if some whale comes in with, transactions originating in Japan on the markets and just starts firing in a bunch of stuff right before some announcement happens,
Yeah.
I don't know. People can kind of swing this stuff one way or another. We got
What's
to look at the
interesting,
volume.
well, yeah, so what's interesting to this, if you scroll all the way up, the volume is 8,500 bucks. That's so low. But then you
Yeah, you can swing this
flip
pretty
over to the
easily.
top. Yeah, flip over to the first one, the top AI model. Big difference in volume, right? I mean, we're we're over a quarter million in volume on this one.
What was the volume about the US election outcome? You have
Oh,
that
dude,
one?
that was, hold on, I gotta find that.
Yeah, go find that so we can make
Yeah.
that point. So yeah, hey, we you get the insider trading crime for a market with 8,500 bucks of volume here, but I think it's still instructive in that like there's quite a wide range of
Okay.
people with different shares in here
Do
where
you
I think
wanna
it's
do you
yeah.
wanna guess what the volume was on that?
Okay, yeah, yeah. Um, how many golf balls can you fit in an airplane? So I'm gonna go with yeah. Okay, I remember there was a report about the French trader like making 60 mil or something off of a $15 million bet.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna say that the volume is over 100 million total. He was a whale. Uh, let's go with $85 million of volume.
Buddy,
No?
3.6 billion United States dollars.
Oh my God. I wasn't even close.
Yeah. Three point
Wow.
six billion dollars was the volume
But,
on
and
that.
people were saying the French trader guy was a whale and swinging the market?
No,
Wow. Okay, I just
category.
got tricked by news articles there. My
Yeah.
bad. Wow. Yeah.
Basically, and it's funny because I think the volume was pretty low or almost non-existent, and then I think it was in July or August when the Supreme Court said that betting on the presidential election is now legal. That
Hmm.
it really went off the rails.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, so maybe just a comment on why we're doing this with Polymarket, because if anybody's interested in what we're doing here, it's not because we're degenerate
Degenerate gamblers.
gamblers.
Yeah.
Uh, I just
Well,
find
speak
it
for
really
yourself,
interesting
but
and anybody, yeah. Okay, maybe it's because I'm not a degenerate gambler. But the anybody who wants to is interested in predictions, which I very much am interested in predictions, read the book Super Forecasting by Philip Tetlock, and you can get an understanding for the fact that um, first of all, people can forecast better than the market, a group of random people.
Mhm.
Um, and there's both people and groups of people that are predictively successful at making these predictions. And I think it also introduces you to the concept of uncertainty, which I've brought up a couple of times here, where the time in that it resolves really impacts making the prediction, and the like confidence in the prediction is really important. The most accurate super forecasters are really good at knowing when they are uncertain and knowing when they are certain about something happening. Like I'm 90% sure this is going to happen, or I have 5% confidence this is going to happen, compared to I'm like 55% this could go either way.
Hmm.
And there's lots of different markets out there that have existed for years that will, set these prediction games forward for the given year. Uh, but Polymarket has done something really interesting with the live crypto-driven
Hmm.
market, where you can see the changes in time of how the market is positioning themselves. And
Right.
man, you said $3.6 billion of volume in a
Yeah.
market for the US presidential election. Yeah, I mean, clearly you are getting super forecasters putting their money where their mouth is in that market.
Oh yeah.
Um, and it was clearly more predictive than uh, polls or pundits, you know, making their own predictions. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's a bit of a spiel on why we're doing this and why we find it interesting, or why I find it interesting. I
I
know
find
we've
it
talked about
interesting
this,
too.
right?
No, this is great.
Yeah.
All right, we got one more, right?
Yeah. Last one. So this is one that we've discussed over the course of the year on this show,
By,
and I think
by the way, look at the volume.
yeah, 3.9 million.
Yeah.
So largest company end of year. Um, yeah, by and it resolves based on market cap, right?
Hmm.
So we've talked about over the course of this year and what whatever how long we've been doing the show, how Nvidia's had peaks. There's been times where it's been the largest company by market cap, and it started the year as the odds-on favorite to, or I get, oh no, I'm sorry, this market came out in November. So Nvidia started November 21st when this market was established as the leader at 67%, and it's now down at 3%, and Apple's up there at 97%. And there's clearly two big spikes. I believe December 1st was roughly when Apple released their earnings, and I believe November 25th something happened just in
Hmm.
the market where Apple crossed Nvidia. So what do you think? 97% according to the market that Apple's going to end the year as the largest company, Nvidia and Microsoft, maybe the other two to consider. Um,
I think
you-
so. If I just look at the market cap right now,
yeah,
I've got it pulled up. Apple's sitting at 3.8 trillion. Nvidia's sitting at 3.2 trillion. Microsoft is also sitting at 3.2 trillion. So, like, Nvidia and Microsoft are basically neck and neck for number two spot. But that still leaves both of them about 600
it's about a
billion
20%
short.
move
Yeah, I
in
mean
one
they're
direction, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that Apple ends up winning this one.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's kind of set in stone. Nobody's reporting earnings. Um, I can't imagine some scandal or something changing something in the next 2 weeks. But give me your prediction for next year outside of the market. You think Apple retains its lead? You think Nvidia makes, some moves in the other direction? Microsoft, others come out of nowhere.
So
What if we've
if
got the
and
same market resolving December 2025?
yeah, so okay, so there's a few things going on, right? Nvidia is being investigated in what, three different countries right now? France, the US, and somewhere else. Um, that could have an effect. There's also, I read this week about there was an investigation done over the last 15 months and basically found that export controls are broken and, high tech is still finding its way to Russia. Um, you know, blame Supermicro, I guess. Um, from that research
Yeah.
article. And
Yeah.
then, Microsoft, right? You've got this whole situation with OpenAI, right? Where if they become a for-profit company and like, their agreement either ends or continues with Microsoft, maybe in a different form, right? If it continues. If OpenAI makes the switch to for-profit and then starts, breaking Microsoft off a piece of that, I mean, that could definitely swing it one way. The other thing I read this week about Apple is that the general consensus seems to be that Apple Intelligence is pretty much meh, or like, so what, right? Like
Yeah.
people are not finding a ton of value in it. Um, so that could have, I think, an effect on Apple's stock because if they make these big bets and they're talking to Broadcom about making custom AI chips for them and they're really going all in on this, but if the user community doesn't see value in it, then there's no way that Apple can truly monetize it, right? Because people aren't going to pay for something that they don't care about using, right? So like they're not going to get money from subscription services and stuff like that. Um, but it could also go the other way, right? Like they could design these chips and make some significant advancements in their models, and then they could, really make Apple Intelligence something that everybody wants to use, right? Especially if you're like in within the Apple ecosystem, meaning like you're on a MacBook, you've got an iPhone, you've got an iPad, etc. Um, and then start charging people, I don't know, 5, 10, $20 a month for premium features. I think you really start to see a massive um, increase in their market cap because for a long time Apple has enjoyed being the largest and most profitable tech company for quite a while, and I think that if they can nail Apple Intelligence, they basically will continue to blow past everybody else.
Yeah. I think, yeah. So it's really interesting. Making the bull case for Apple when they're the number one largest market cap company in the world, and having it hinge around AI seems like the thing to do. I think I agree with everything you said, basically. Um, Not sure if I could, restate it any better. The only thing that I imagine happening is somebody else executing better and growing faster,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
And um, there's when you're so big, I think that it's hard to have that happen in a year. Uh, Even if sentiment changes, it's
Hmm.
just there's these moves in these stocks are so big. But let me restate something. So Apple need basically AI is a risk to them. I don't think there's anything fundamental where, okay, they nail AI, they make it contingent on getting a new phone to get this AI thing. Everybody says it's great, and so they get new phones, and now the revenue and the profitability continues to go up. Makes sense. I don't think, Vision Pro or some new watch or iPad is just gonna, take
Nope.
things off. It's kind of
No.
hinging on the phones, the Macs. I think the Mac Mini is super interesting. That $800 thing that can run Llama locally for you is like,
Yeah.
that maybe that's a potential product that can kind of take them up.
Yeah,
And then there's,
what was that guy that put like 8 of them together in like a custom 3D printed like rack case and is like running LLMs on them? Like that's
yeah,
pretty cool.
distributed. Yeah,
Yeah.
because not only does this thing have like the super, it's got this ARM chip in it, the M4 with the super high memory bandwidth. So these, models can run really fast. It's also got this Thunderbolt connection that's like super high bandwidth. I don't know
Hmm.
exactly how much it is, but yeah, you can link four of these things together and run big models, tensor parallel across four Mac Minis sitting under your desk without much power and heat. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah. So look, I think there's a case to be made for NVIDIA continuing on, considering they're just like growing 90% year over year, and they continue to say Blackwell demand is outpacing anything they can produce.
Hmm.
Um, Microsoft will just continue to be the place to actually integrate AI for business. Integrate AI into Office 365, into your OneDrive, into your SharePoint, into your any Microsoft application, and it's just useful immediately to everybody like in the world doing business.
Well, and now I don't know if you caught this, I think it was yesterday, they are now taking the freemium approach to GitHub Copilot. So now you can actually go and take GitHub Copilot for a spin for free.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Like it makes a lot of sense, but I can't make a bull case, an honest bull case that there's going to be a bunch of return on invested capital for AI in the next year. Like
Hmm.
these time horizons are years for anybody
Right.
getting their money back for the investment in the GPUs that's already been made, let alone what they're making going forward. So I think same logic applies to Amazon and Alphabet, and then you're at the realm of companies that aren't big enough to compete with Apple. They can't go double, can't have a Ramco or Meta or Tesla, Broadcom, TSMC. I can't imagine a world where they just double in market cap or triple to compete with Apple in size. But I
Right.
want to answer a different question, which I think is interesting based on something you said, which is that um, everybody wants to design their own silicon and invest in AI. And
Hmm.
everybody immediately is like, well, then the good investment is TSMC, which is number 10. And if there's anybody in the top 10 that has potential to double, I think it's Broadcom, not financial advice, but this is the company that all of it, everybody above them on the list goes to for design services and producing accelerators. They partner
Yeah.
with Google, they partner with Amazon, they partner with Tesla, with Meta for the DLRM chip. I mean, um, with Apple for all of their stuff. M2, M3, M4, the A15, 16 stuff in the phones is fascinating. So, um,
I agree with you.
picks and shovels for AI. Broadcom is just, and they're just executing like crazy. We've talked about the VMware stuff as well, but I mean, come on, it's a juggernaut. It's massive. So it's a
Yeah, I
trillion
mean,
dollar company that nobody knows, basically.
I agree with you on Broadcom. There was an interesting op-ed piece that I read earlier this week about at what point does Broadcom make more AI chips than NVIDIA? Because if they start really ramping up, like, if Apple's going to them for custom AI chips and others follow
Yeah.
suit, right? Like, it's only a matter of time before, like, yeah, okay, Broadcom doesn't have their own accelerator, or GPU, or AI chip, whatever you want to call it, but they literally make everyone else's except NVIDIA's and AMD's, right? So
Yep.
it's like I could definitely see that being the case and them doubling just on the sole fact that they're making everybody's stuff.
Yeah. It seems like I don't know, the moat, as you might say, is the most durable
Hmm.
of these. Like obviously TSMC is there because as we talked about, they don't really have competition at the foundry level yet.
Hmm.
Maybe Intel comes out of nowhere, but the problem with that is that it takes like 10 years to build a new fab. Not exactly, but you're like, how could
Well, and
TSMC
then
possibly double? Well, they just start charging everybody a bunch more. I don't know if
it
that's
takes 10
possible.
years to build a new fab, and then it takes even longer than that to get the yields to an acceptable rate.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So it's well, look, it's interesting. We took the largest company end of year discussion off. Like for some reason, we look at this and go, Apple's the largest, whereas in literally November, the market thought Nvidia was the largest company end of year. It's now obviously Apple, and whatever case we just made says it's obviously Apple all through next year. I think something's going to change. Like,
Yeah.
you know, um, let's see if Nvidia reports with another 90% year over year growth next quarter. And then,
Just continues like to just blow it out of the water. It's funny because the bears are out there saying that Nvidia is going to hit a wall and they're not going to be able to post 90% year over year, or quarter over quarter gains for much longer, right? It's like unsustainable. But if they continue on the release cadence, I read an article, I think either this week or last week, that they've already pulled Rubin forward. So
Yeah.
now, while everybody is like, you know, clamoring, and you got Elon paying an extra billion on top of whatever he spent just to jump the line and be the first people to get GB200. Like, yeah, I get it, right? Demand for GB200 is hot, but then if they already pulled Rubin forward, it's like, yeah, everyone who's got the capital to do it is just going to be like, okay, give me X100 or whatever they're calling it, right? Like,
Yeah,
the
I'm
demand's
not
not
going to
going to
sit here
slow.
and you're right, you're right. I'm not going to sit here and make a bear case for Nvidia. I think, people talk about the first $10 trillion company now that there's 10 $1 trillion companies or whatever it is.
Right.
And, they're almost halfway there. Biggest ones being at 3.8, 3.4. So who can triple from here? And, it seems like Apple and Nvidia are both good candidates. So let me share one thing that I saw in the Fabricated Knowledge article. It originates from semi-analysis, which is all now one thing. Doug O'Loughlin's joined Dylan Patel in semi-analysis, which is super cool. Um, NVIDIA networking attach rate has gone from about 35% at the beginning of 2023 to a forecasted 10% in the third quarter of next year, based on current orders. This is NVIDIA based on filings and some research that semi-analysis did.
Yeah.
A lot of people talk about NVIDIA's a systems company, NVIDIA's a software company, NVIDIA's making CPUs now. The thing that they've been able to do, and a lot of people have reported as being a big differentiator, is sell networking. Like the
Hmm.
Mellanox acquisition has paid for itself many times over. NVIDIA is not a networking company if they're only attaching at 10% of their time to GPU sales.
Nope.
And who makes the chips that go into Arista switches, Cisco switches, and Juniper switches?
Broadcom.
Yeah. So if people are buying network switches and everything's network bandwidth bound, meaning memory bandwidth bound at data center scale, sounds like we're going to be selling a lot of Tomahawk chips. And there's going to
It
be a
does.
90% attach rate to NVIDIA GPUs.
It does, especially when you consider that Tomahawk's already achieved 800 gig, and there's already, I think, Juniper, either Arista or Juniper has already got an 800 gig switch out on the market right now, that's Tomahawk based.
Yeah.
And NVIDIA is still talking about XDR being a ways out, right, for 800 gigs. So, yeah, I mean, I agree.
Yeah, it may be. It's funny, man. So I'm thinking about this and I'm going, who is the company that's attacking the moat of the others in the top 10? And it's Meta.
Hmm.
Like if you think about their llama models being open source and forcing everybody else to take really weird business strategies instead of charging everybody for every token in or out of Claude or ChatGPT.
Hmm.
And then they've got all of this investment in the Ultra Ethernet Consortium and OCP and just like making Ethernet work at scale. Like nobody was buying Ethernet for GPU clusters. And then Meta's like, we didn't do InfiniBand, we did Rocky V2, we trained Llama with it, it works. And now everybody else is like, sounds like I can do Ethernet too, save a bunch of money on my switches and cables. Now they're doing it. I mean, it's like for a company that's making money off of advertising on social media,
Yeah.
they're quite a bit of a thorn in the side of some other companies on this list.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, I think that brings us to a close for 2024.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everybody out there. It's been a fun end to 2024. Uh, let's see if we can pay for some New Year's Day deals when Hunter's crypto portfolio pays off. Now that he's going to throw all his money on Polymarket here. Let's see. Let's see.
Yeah,
Good luck,
absolutely.
man.
Thanks.
Talk to you next year.
Yep.